Okay. My name is Jo Reingold, and I'm interviewing Susie Avnery. Today is Friday, December 21st, 2018. Good morning, Susie. How are you?
Hello there. Good.
Tell us a little bit about your family that you recall, your grandparents, your parents, where they lived, what they did.
Okay, so I never had any grandparents. Everybody was dead before I was born. My parents were refugees, basically, came to Dallas. Don't want to tear up this early in the interview.
That's okay.
So I was raised here in Dallas.
Wait, let me stop you. How did they pick Dallas? Did they know people? Did they have a connection?
Oh, okay.
That's an interesting part of the story.
Oh, yeah, that's probably really interesting.
Yeah.
So,
all right, go ahead.
So how my parents came to Dallas, they got out of Germany in the mid-1930s. They had an idea that something bad was going to happen. My father was the boy in the family. He got a visa from a relative somehow and was able to come to the United States. He was in his 20s. And he had a series of odd jobs all around the United States. But he was very proud that he was a welder in the shipyards. Mm-hmm. Because he said that he welded the things that are on the bottom of the ships when they made their landing on D-Day, mm-hmm. where the things come out of the ships and the tanks and things can roll down, mm-hmm. and they had these horizontal plates to keep the equipment from sliding right into the ocean. So he said, I welded those.
Where was he living at the time?
That was Seattle, I think.
The West Coast.
It was either in Seattle, shipyards there, it had to be, or else it was in Rochester, but he was in both, Rochester, New York, but I believe Seattle would make more sense for shipyards. Yeah. But he would always say that. Now my mom, so that was a fairly simple exit from Germany. He got out, he came here, but his younger sister and both parents went to Uruguay in Montevideo, because that was a country that was accepting Jews, and they had a pretty good German Jewish community after the war. And my one cousin, closest relative, was actually born there, just a year behind me. Mm-hmm. So that's my father's story. Then my mother, very interesting. Her mother. So my mom was born in 1922, and as a very young girl, her mother died of natural causes. The father remarried somebody. She has a stepmother. And then as we go into the 1930s, she was a member of a Jewish youth group. And in the mid-1930s, my mom was a young teenager, 13, 14, 15. And the youth group was saying, bad things are going to happen. Mm-hmm. The Jews need to leave. Well, her father didn't believe it. He had been a World War I veteran for Germany. He said, no, we're going to stay. Well, he got sick and died of natural causes, leukemia. He got sick, he died. My mother really believed something bad would happen to the Jews, so she went with a Jewish group that had found places for girls to work as domestics in England. Mm-hmm. So she took it upon herself to leave the stepmother and little half-sister. She packed a bag, she signed up, and she went and spent the war years in England. That's where she perfected her English. And then after the war, she had kept in touch with a distant cousin. He had come to the U.S. and actually joined the army here in the U.S. He was a mathematics wizard, and he had a desk job in Tyler, Texas. And their letters they were cousin letters, but during the course of the war, 4 years, they became love letters. And he sent for her, and she came to the U.S., and they married, they had a life, and she went to Tyler, Texas. And she said she never knew heat like Texas heat. Never seen anything like it. So that, and then how they both ended up in Dallas. Eventually, my mother with that husband came to Dallas, but he died of natural causes. He had a heart attack, leaving her with 2 young sons. And in the 1950s, when those boys were about 8 and 6, she met Alfred Salfield, who was my father. So they got married in the mid-50s, and I came along in 1957.
How did your dad get to Dallas?
So my father, I just understand he was a traveling salesman, and he had different jobs, and I guess one of them took him into Dallas. And I know that he did live here because he would point out a garage apartment on Purdue in University Park and say, I live there. It's 2 houses from the corner, like right off Hillcrest and Purdue. And that's what people did in those days. A lot of the people would have a garage apartment, and they'd let somebody live there. And he said the person who owned the house had been something related to the Nuremberg trials, like an army person or an observer or somebody who actually participated, and he felt very sorry for the German Jews. So that was a reason he wanted to rent the apartment to my father.
Now, how did your parents meet exactly?
Okay, and that's another good story. How my parents met was my mother was a widow with these 2 boys, 8 and 6, basically.
And where was she living?
She lived in Dallas, in the Lakewood area. She had her house, and she was already doing a little bit of volunteer work when she could. She felt a strong connection to Temple Emmanuel. That was her community. Anyway, she or someone else she knew was working the cards for the Federation on a Super Sunday type of thing. And, in those days, I guess they had a phone bank, and you came into a building, but you saw the cards. And either her or somebody told her, there's a single man, this Alfred Salfield, and he's been making a reasonable donation. Somebody should contact him. He's a German Jew, and he's single, and you all should meet. And somebody set it up, and they hit it off. So there's a lesson here.
Right.
Give on Super Sunday and do your volunteer work and look at the cards.
Don't resist being set up.
That's right. And they got set up, and that worked out very well for them. And he got married because he wanted a ready-made family. He wanted to have the 2 boys already. That was something important to him. But later she talked him into trying for a child, and they had me.
And we're glad they did.
Yeah.
So where did you grow up as a youngster?
So my youngest years were in the Lakewood area, and I went to Lakewood Elementary School, which had almost no Jews. And when I was 9, we moved into the JCC area because my parents wanted me to be in a neighborhood with Jewish people and just have a Jewish surroundings and be able to go to Sunday school within 10 minutes of the house, and JCC down the street. So I live right here on North Haven, 3 blocks from the J.
And I assume your dad was doing well at that time.
My father was a traveling salesman, and he would leave on Monday morning. He had Texas and Oklahoma, and he would come back on Friday afternoon. And he did fine. A lot of the German Jewish men were in the garment industry. They were traveling salesmen, and then they'd see each other every so often at the apparel mart and the markets every maybe 3 months or so.
Did your dad have a showroom there?
My dad had a showroom. He had 2 of them actually, and my mom ran one of them, and I helped her. Lingerie was that one, and then he had bras in the other one. So unfortunately for me, I was a skinny, scrawny child. I could not wear any of that stuff. And by the time I graduated college, right when I started college, he retired. I could finally fit into it, and then he didn't have it anymore.
Besides Temple Emmanuel, what else was your family involved in?
My parents were involved in a group called Self-Help, which is something the German Jews affiliated with. And from what I understand, it was a social outlet, so they could talk about coming to America and things that were difficult for them. Of course, by the time I was aware of it, it was already the mid-1960s. These folks had been here a good 10, 15, 20 years. But it was a social group. But I understand from the beginning that it was very helpful as they started their lives here. They had their children here. So that's what they were involved with as a couple. They loved Temple Emmanuel, and they would go to things there. Reform was definitely their choice. And they did not speak German in the house. I thought I would just add that. They did not ever want to be reminded of Germany, except when they had something to discuss and I shouldn't know about it, then it would be in German.
Not Yiddish?
No, they didn't speak Yiddish.
Not Yiddish.
No.
Okay. And when did your mom become involved in Hadassah?
So my mom got involved in Hadassah, I think in the 1960s when I was a young girl. I was born in 57, so my earliest memories are I would say was probably in grade school. But she could have been involved in it earlier. I know she was, because I've seen some very old pictures from the Texas Jewish Post, and she was involved in it, earlier.
So what were you involved in as a child and a teenager?
So, I thought I would add one more thing.
Okay.
I know my mom did something with Temple Emmanuel Sisterhood. They would go every so often to a preschool located near Fair Park, and they would serve lunch. And if it happened to be a break where I was out of school, I got to go with her. So I thought it probably made an impact on me.
Mm-hmm. She was always doing service.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, so what am I involved in now?
No, or even growing up and then leading up to.
Well, growing up, my main Jewish organization, I had two of them, was BBG, Reba Wadel, where I met my best friends, like the interviewer today. That's a great story too, but I won't go into it here in this interview. But many of those girls we're still friends with today. And I was also in Temple Teens, which is from Temple Emmanuel, it would be Daphne, which is part of Tofty. So that would be the Reformed youth group. But my days were, I had great memories with youth group, and of course Jewish camp, which I started probably in summer prior to second grade, and I went to Camp Young Judea, which was in Kerrville, Texas, and a sleepaway camp, and I really had good times there. It was very important to me, all the Jewish stuff that I got. Good.
And that actually leads up to things that you've been involved in as a young adult and as an adult.
Oh.
Continuation there.
Okay. So as an adult, boy, I do a lot. It seems like I stay busy all the time. So my number one organization is Hadassah, and I just feel like the work it does in Israel with the hospital there is amazing work, and it needs to be supported. It's just got global implications with the cures, the treatments around the world, and of course what they do in Israel with the victims of terror attacks, and they're a showpiece for the world that you need to cooperate, and medicine is the bridge to peace. I also like their youth at-risk villages, residential villages, which is the best way you can rehabilitate and raise children that just don't have a home life, and I sure wish this country would do something like that, because we seem to throw away our kids, and in Israel they value every one of them. They get a place, and there's many youth villages. Hadassah has 3, but there's many of them around the country, and the Israelis take pride in their kids, and they want them to succeed. They need them to succeed. They're the next generation, They have to be in the army, and then they're the leaders, and they all need to produce families to sustain the country. And I really believe in Israel's way of handling their troubled youth. I think it's a great way. I also do AIPAC, because I believe that it's extremely important that the U.S. And Israel maintain a very strong, close relationship, because the money to help fund so many things in Israel in the defense has to come from somewhere, and I'm very involved in AIPAC because I believe that AIPAC is what pushes our congressmen to keep knowing the truth, and I mean the truth about Israel and its needs and what is not true, and they keep pushing for the good votes that send the money to Israel. I'm also involved locally in Southwest Jewish Congress, which is a pro-Israel organization, but we have programs about things about Israel. We also do programs to unite and build bridges within this entire Dallas community from all ethnicities. But because it maintains a pro-Israel message, I feel like we reach other people in that way.
And National Council?
Oh yeah, National Council of Jewish Women. I do Hello Israel. I've been doing that one since my 26-year-old was 5. I had to wait until she got into kindergarten because I needed 3 or 4 hours at a block to go out of the house and do the presentation. But I love doing that because me and a partner, we bring facts about Israel. We make a social studies presentation that lasts about an hour to an hour and a half. We bring it to 6th graders, And we tell them facts about Israel, very important facts that they're not going to hear. And how tiny is the country, but how many innovations they do. And how it's democratic and how it's like the United States. And we want them to understand that it's an important place in the world, and the U.S. should be affiliated with it, and we should always want to support it. But I have to give this as a neutral social studies lesson, but yet we let the kids understand it's a modern democratic country, much like the United States. And it's not just what they hear on the news.
Right. Now, back up just a little bit and tell a little bit about your college life and what you did after college.
So my college life, I went to the University of Texas, which most of us Jewish Dallas kids did if we wanted a good public education. And I went there for a couple of years, and I realized that I didn't like the major, and I wanted to study, rather than biology, I went into biomedical science, which would make me a veterinary assistant or a lab tech, or there's some other affiliated allied health careers. So I went to Texas A&M. And I'm actually a Texas Aggie now instead of a Longhorn. And once I graduated, I came back to Dallas, and I had a job as a veterinary assistant, and then I had a job as a sonogram technician when they were just coming out in the early 1980s. And once my first child was born, I stopped working, and I've been able to be home with all three of my kids.
How did you meet your husband?
So I met Bo through the Jewish Singles Group here at the J, and we were married 35 years, recently divorced, but we're all happy. It's still, everybody's on very good terms. But it was Jewish Singles Group, and I, way before J dates and all of that stuff, you actually met people face to face. Those were the days.
What a novelty.
Yeah. And he was an Israeli, which was very interesting to me. That I really liked that. I thought that's going to line up with my my life mission, I guess, to always be somehow connected to Israel. So.
And tell me about your three kids. Where are they now? What are their lives like?
So I have three kids, adult kids, and they do act like adults. My oldest is 35, Karen, married with 3 children herself. A 5-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 10-month-old. So I have 3 grandkids. And then, and I'll even name them. So that's Ollie and Alice and Henry. And her husband is Sean. Then my middle child.
Where are they living?
Oh, they live outside of Chicago. But lucky for me, they hate the winter. So they come and stay with me for a couple of months. But once the oldest starts real school, I don't know what we can do. Unless we enroll him in the school near my house for 2 months. My next one is Dan, and Dan just got married to Megan this past summer. And they are going on their first trip, her first trip to Israel will be this coming spring. And yes, they have a tour booked at the Hadassah Hospital.
Good, good. And they live here? They
live here, and Megan recently converted in, so she's Jewish. And then Amanda is number 3, my third child. She is 25, actually they're 35 and 32 and 25 right now. And Amanda seems to be the most Jewish of the 3. So she's actually living in New York City, and on Friday night she turns off her phone, she does Shomer Shabbos. She spends Friday evening with friends at a dinner, and Saturday she goes to services somewhere. And then she calls us on Saturday evening and says, okay, the phone's back on. And she's taking a Jewish class once a week, and they're going to Israel this coming Saturday night. She's leaving for 10 days on a Meor trip, and it involves Jewish study in Jerusalem with a trip to Hebron to see Rachel's tomb. So it's a very unique trip. And then she decided she's going to stay an extra 10 days and just find her friends and related family in Israel. So we won't even know where she is. She's going to do 10 days all by herself. And we'll see her in mid-January.
Wonderful.
Yeah. I credit her enthusiasm for Israel with lots of Young Judea. That one did Young Judea camp from entering 2nd grade all the way to the end of the junior year. whereas the other two did not do Jewish camps that long. But it has struck a chord with her, and her friends keep being connected to Young Judea. It is absolutely amazing where these connections come from. Yeah.
Wonderful. Since you're a native, tell us a little bit about what changes you've seen in Dallas.
Oh boy, where do I start? So within the Jewish community, I remember that there were 3 main synagogues. When I was in high school, so in the early 70s, they opened up Temple Shalom, so that was the 4th. And all of a sudden, from what I understand, we have 26 synagogues in this area. It just seems like there's more Jewish things. We've got Jewish preschools, Jewish schools. I remember when Akiba was tiny, my friend Helen Rosenberg got in Surrey Dubin. Every year, they would always add a year, and it was their year, from 3rd grade to 4th grade to 5th grade to 6th, and so on. And what big news there was when they opened Yavna. That was a big milestone here. Well, we have lots of Jewish groups. Oh boy, lots of them. Besides the sisterhoods and the brotherhoods, and then the Jewish preschools, and then Hadassah and Council and B'nai Zion, and so many Jewish things, and Jewish lecturers. The Holocaust Center at UTD, they do a great series. I mean, they have lots of programs there, and then the Holocaust Center downtown Dallas, amazing. Of course, the DJHS, which is doing the interview now.
Okay.
You know, they just have a lot to offer. So if you want to know about something Jewish in this city or do something Jewish, you can do it.
Is there anywhere else you've thought of that you would rather live?
Probably not. I tend to think I'll always be here in Dallas. Yeah. But I like to hear the stories about the people who made the city in its Jewish way, and because I knew some of those people, and I see the names on places, and then I realize how important they were.
Yeah.
I just told someone just yesterday that Taichi from Taichi Gotinger was Jewish, and that because I heard this on the DJHS bus trip last week, but the KKK was recruiting people, and in maybe the 50s or so,
Late 50s.
they were recruiting people, and they went to business owners to say, you know, come along, join us. And they approached Taichi, and he says, no, I'm Jewish. Well, they had no idea. And of course, Taichi was Jewish, and Mr. Sanger was Jewish, and Stanley Marcus. So you hear these names and how these people built the city.
That's true.
And how they constantly give back. I mean, that's real important, that the Jewish people are always doing something within the city, and that's really important.
Tell us a little bit about your older brother, Monty.
Oh.
I understand he's here now.
Yes, my brother Monty is a math whiz. He and his wife, Jane, have just moved here from Lubbock. So he was a professor at Texas Tech in the math department in the graduate school. And Jane is a retired dean from Texas Tech. And they were the big fish in the small Jewish pond out there. And they've decided, now that they're in their 70s, that this is the city they want to have their senior times in. So I'm happy to have them here.
Very good.
They don't have kids, but they have a great dog.
And they have great nieces and nephews.
Yes, they do.
Yes, they do. Can you think of anybody that you would consider to be a role model for you?
Golda Meir.
Oh, wow. That's lofty. Okay.
Yeah. And then in modern times, I look at Nikki Haley.
Really?
Yeah, Nikki Haley. And as a matter of fact, my daughter Amanda, we both were very upset when we heard that she was retiring and leaving the UN. We really like her. I mean, we haven't heard of any scandals. We think she's done a great job. So from what we've known in the past 2 years, we really like what we've seen with Nikki Haley.
Do you want to follow in her footsteps?
No.
In politics?
No, I will just continue to do what I can on the ground right here in Dallas, Texas.
What are you the most proud of, if you can think of something?
My kids.
Tell me specific. Can you be more specific? A little bit.
Yeah.
Like what makes you so proud of them?
Well, Karen, although Karen has, let me just
Okay, that's okay.
catch my,
That's all right. I must say, all three of your kids are fantastic.
Well,
I'm just
thank
sticking
you.
that in. No, it's true. It's really true. I don't know hardly anybody else who could say all of their kids are wonderful.
thank you.
Yeah.
So Karen married a Catholic, and they follow both religions in the house. And I'm very pleased that she makes every effort to do the major holidays. So they do, Rosh Hashanah and Hanukkah, and Passover is terrific. And she always has the other part of the family come, Sean's family. And so it's really a great way to bring Judaism to other people where they wouldn't otherwise have it. And she even goes, like it's a 30-minute drive to get to the nearest synagogue because they live in such a small area. But she'll go a 30-minute drive once a month to do the Shabbat on a Friday morning at a synagogue. And they have a family friend who goes with them. So that's been very good for the kids. I mean, it's a big effort to do that. So I really admire her with all that. And Dan, I mean, he insisted that Megan convert. He made it very clear early on that was extremely important that he have a Jewish wife and Jewish kids. So I still think that came from Young Judea.
Okay.
The limited time he went, I think it made an impact. He also did a Birthright Israel trip when he was about 20, and I think that had a big impact. So I think these experiences when you're young really affect you. And then Amanda, she's just, we're waiting to see what comes up with her, but I don't know. She could even make Aliyah to Israel for all I know. I don't think she would, because she likes the conveniences of New York City and everything, but they're just very good kids. I'm very, very proud of them.
And a lot of that has to do with parenting also.
Well, thank you.
Absolutely. Let's not forget that part. Is there anything you can think of that you'd like to add to the interview? Let your viewers know about? Well,
I consider it like my job, my unofficial job, because I didn't get paid, but to be a good volunteer for Israel and just to be very positive about Israel. I try to go with the various organizations if they do some lobbying in Congress or at the state capitol. I try to talk positively and knowledgeably about Israel when I'm with my son's family, because they're not Jewish, and I'm bringing Israel to them. And my son-in-law, same thing. So I try to open the eyes of people, because Israel gets a lot of bad press, terrible press. And it's up to us, this very small amount of Jews, to keep up the positive, because it's the truth. I'm not lying. I'm saying what is really happening. And we want to be a good example to so many Christians in our community, and the Jews need to do good. Be good and support the community and be active and always have a good name for ourselves. I always shudder if you see a Jewish name with some kind of a crime. It doesn't happen often, but boy, we all look and we hope that, if something bad happened, it was not somebody in the Jewish community that did it, because it just puts a stain on all of us. So I enjoy learning all about Israel. I do these APAC things, and I love that. My Hadassah work, I love that, because I bring in people, women who have so much potential to do something, but they got to find the time. But if we can get them hooked on what Hadassah does, all the good it can do, that's important to me, really important. Because, some of these organizations you need to give your time. Some of them you need to give money. And some of them you need to publicize what they do. And it's all important. Now, I forgot to mention I'm on the board of Dallas Hebrew Free Loan. And it's a great organization. I had no idea what all they did until I got on the board. And
what do they do?
Very proud. They give a loan to anybody who is Jewish for usually a kind of a short term, but for anything, a family emergency, a medical crisis. It could be adoption and infertility. There's a loan for that. How about if you have a Jewish cultural thing that you need to do, like send somebody to camp, or you're converting and you need to kosher your kitchen, or you need Hebrew lessons for something. So they have a Jewish, I don't know what you call it, but it's special for that. You have another one for women in crisis, specifically, families in crisis. So besides the regular ones that we all think about, I need a loan to help pay my rent, my car's in the shop, I had a sickness, but these are things that it's interest-free. And I know people who are getting these loans, which of course I didn't know about before, and I always wondered, how have they been getting along over the years, and now I know. And people are very proud. Then later they'll say, and they'll give a testimonial that yes, this organization helped me, and everybody should know about it. But it's all very kept confidential until the people say something about it. Yeah. So
Very good.
yeah.
Well, thank you so much. It's been wonderful, and keep up the involvement. We need that.